Okay guys, Mrs. Vance here. The first thing you're going to want to do in the pottery wheel is make sure that you have a bat or that your wheel is clean before you begin. Mine's a little dirty from working earlier today, but even the exterior should be nice and clean. You're going to take a slice of clay and you are going to form that clay into a nice ball, just like we start pinch pots and a lot of other things that we do with our ceramics. So take your hands and just give it a nice firm pack down. We want to make sure this is wedged clay, so we always are going to take fresh clay from the tubes on my desk. Alright, then we're going to place the clay in the middle of our bat. The bat is this black board that is going on top of my wheel. And I'm going to kind of push it and give it a nice squeeze and suction to the bat so that it doesn't move. And we're going to kind of just pound it down and shape it just a little bit to really make sure we've got that dome-like shape stuck to the bat. Okay, and we are ready to begin. So we are going to turn on our wheel. Our wheel is going to be kind of a medium speed. You don't want it too slow, but you also don't want it too fast. Okay, our hands can go a few different ways. Everybody throws a different way. I tend to throw, which I call kind of like the bird way, where I lock my thumbs over the top of each other and use the side and the top. Some people throw this way with their wrists together. There is no right or wrong way. It's whatever works best for you. So once our wheel is moving, okay, we're going to add a little bit of water. We never want our clay to be sticky because our hands need to be able to slide with the clay. And the first thing we're trying to do is center our clay. Now we don't want our hands moving all over the place, so we're going to do T-Rex arms. We're going to tuck our elbows into my knees, and I'm going to use my knees to kind of hug the wheel. And your goal is to hold the clay tight. So you are tensing up your arms to make sure that you are pushing the clay, throwing it, and not catching it. So I'm applying a decent amount of pressure to make sure that I am trying to not move my arms at all. Locking those elbows into my legs into the wheel. And our goal is to center our clay. Centering the clay means that it spins without a wobble. It's in the center of the wheel and it's ready to go. So some people might say, well, it looks like you're centered. Nope, it's a little off, it's a little wobbly. If you feel a wobble, if you see a wobble, it is not centered. So I'm going to continue to press, okay, using my overlap thumb technique. I'm putting very light pressure on the top. Most of my pressure is on my left hand, my side hand. I am right-handed, so I work on the left side of the wheel. There is differing opinions about whether you should always throw right-handed or left-handed. It's really up to you and what you're comfortable with. People that choose to throw left-handed stay on this side, but they reverse the wheel, and sometimes they go to the other side. It's completely up to your comfort level. So this is the other way to center. I'm just showing you. Some people cup their hands. What I do notice is when students tend to cup their hands, though, they squeeze too tight, and then they end up cutting off their shape because their pinkies dig into the clay too much. So my heels of my hands are together. Still elbows in, T-Rex arms. No chicken wings. And you want, when you're centering, you're trying to build up, but then you also want to go back and compress down. This just ensures that there is no air bubbles, that you have it wedged completely so there's no surprises later when we open up to our cylinder shape. So as you notice, I'm constantly digging down and keeping my hands wet, getting the clay wet. Anytime I feel my hands start to stick to the clay, I want to go back and make it wet, just so that there's more movement and less friction between my hands. Alright, so Mrs. Vance is not a pro. Some people can get things centered super, super fast. Because I was on maternity leave, I have not done this for a while either. So I can still feel a little bit of wiggle, so it's driving me crazy, so I'm trying to get that wiggle out of there. You technically could do this all by feel. You can do it blind. So I'm pretty darn close. But close is great for horseshoes, but not for ceramics. We want to make sure we are centered before we move on. And sometimes you'll get really close to centered and then you'll push a little too hard and you'll throw it off center. And so that can be super frustrating, but don't be afraid to call me over and I can hop on the wheel and help you get centered. That is going to be your biggest struggle while starting on the pottery wheel. Centering is kind of an art form in itself, and I am by no means a master. And I'm actually going to kick up my wheel, make it a touch faster. Sometimes going a little too slow can throw off your centering, and going too fast can get a little crazy too. So you want to try to find a happy medium. The wheel pedal can be kind of touchy too. So sometimes it goes too fast. Don't freak out, just slow it down a little bit. So because I'm going a little faster now, I'm able to control it a little bit more, and now I'm pretty centered. So I don't want to start out super fast, but you can work up to a little bit faster to help get everything nice and centered. All right. So I'm ready to start opening up my cylinder. Again, you can do this two ways. You can use your heels of your hands and you can meet your thumbs and push into the center of the clay. Or you can use one hand, take your left hand and kind of grab onto your left hand with your right and overlap like we did before, but now I'm going to use my middle finger and push in. So I'll kind of do it both ways to show you your options. And you got to put a decent amount of pressure. We don't have the softest clay. We're not using porcelain. So we want to make sure that we're getting... So now I'm going to use my middle finger technique, which is what I prefer. And my left hand is basically used to center the clay. So my left hand is keeping the clay centered. My right hand is opening the clay. So I'm going to go down until I'm about a ½ inch away from the wheel. And that's kind of tricky too to figure out how far you are, but you can kind of figure it out by doing it off to the side of the wheel and knowing where you are. Once my fingers are all the way down, straight down, I can start to pull. I'm going to use this kind of gesture and pull towards my other hand. So my centering hand is going to stay centering. And my right hand is going to start to pinch to my left hand. Basically, I'm thinning out the walls, and that's going to open up the cylinder on the wheel. Now, eventually, you're going to not want all that water that's going to start to build up on the inside of your cylinder. So you can use a sponge and squeeze out that sponge and kind of just gently drag it inside, and it'll help suction up some of that excess water on the inside of your thrown cylinder or cup or bowl or whatever you are making. Now, at some point, you may get to the point where things start to have a little bit of wobble again. Don't be afraid to go back to centering to help kind of control what you are creating. Now, what are you going to create? Well, you're going to start with a cylinder and you're going to see where it takes you from there. You might have an idea to make a bowl and that doesn't turn out right, or you want to make a mug or a cup-like shape. I say just pull your cylinder and see where it takes you. See what you think it's going to turn out to be. Is it going to be more of a bowl? Is it going to be a wide bowl, an ice cream bowl? What kind of shape do you want it to be? Is it going to be more like a teacup? You decide. So, you want to make sure that the walls are about 1/4 inch thick. We don't want our pottery wheel pieces to be very heavy. And again, I'm going to go back and clean up the inside. And at the end, I will go with my sponge and clean up the outside too. I'm just being very gentle, using barely any touch. Now I'm going to angle my hand down towards the bottom where the foot of my pot will be. And that's just going to help cut in a little bit and help me create that bottom of the pottery. And I'm going to slow down my wheel a little bit. It was great for when I was trying to get my centering in order, but I kind of want to control it a bit more now. So I'm going to finish it up just by cleaning up the shape. Less is more, especially when it's the first or second time you have done this. So don't be afraid to stop. Stop your wheel, call me over, or let it keep spinning on its center. Call me over and I'll help kind of get you finished. Not too bad for Mrs. Vance's second or third shot back for the school year. We're going to clean it up again with the sponge. I got a little off center at the end. I got a little overzealous. But I'm going to clean up the outside with my sponge. And from there, I think I'm going to call it a day. I could take a tool and scrape any extra clay off the bottom, but I'm not going to worry about that, and I don't want you to accidentally gouge into your shape. So when you stop the wheel, look and see if there's any extra water that you want to clean up. You can turn it back on and soak it up with the sponge. Otherwise, you are going to take the bat off of the wheel. You might need a partner. You might need to kind of get it to be unsuctioned from the wheel, and then we're going to let it dry gently and slowly with a bag over the top of it so that we can cut your foot tomorrow.